And even though his name says Max, it's really Simon. We are having some technical difficulties, so Simon had to log in on Max's account. But Simon, you can go ahead and introduce yourself.
Yeah, my name is Simon. I'm CTO and co-founder of Filestage. At Filestage, I care about the development team. I'm the tech guy there. Also taking care about the operations part. And yeah, if you want to know more about my background, feel free to check me out on LinkedIn. Basically, I did the classical road of doing software engineering as a permanent employee, and then switching over to a freelancer. That's basically it.
Yeah. And Simon today is going to be our expert on how to run effective online meetings at your company as you transition into this work from home model. Due to the unfortunate circumstances, we all are working from home. But what's really amazing about Simon is that he is really, really keen on processes and very focused on making sure that everything making sure everything runs smoothly for things like our meetings. So we wanted to invite Simon to come join us today to go over how to run effective online meetings while working from home.
Cool. Thank you very much, Ed, for this introduction. So, okay, let's start. Can you see the slides? Everything running? Cool. Okay, let's start. So how to run effective online meetings. So first of all, I would like to give you an overview of what we're going to do. So we will do a quick introduction. I think we already did part of that. Then I will give you some context about our team, and because based on the context, there are these meeting requirements, and I will give you the chance to better put things into context that I'm going to tell you, and think about how you can project this to your team and your things. Then we're going to take a look into the meeting structure from a general perspective. I will guide you through the meeting phases. We'll show you some meeting examples, and at the end, we're going to take a look into some other helpful tools. Okay, so who am I? I think we already did that. Who we are? So we're basically a team of 22 people that believe that working time should be valuable time. So that time that we spend on having an impact to this world while having also a healthy work-life balance. And we all believe that broken workflows poisoning teams with miscommunication and friction and frustration. And by that, it kills also the quality of our working time. And with what we build, we want to fuel teams out there with rock-solid workflows, so their work time is as valuable as ours. So what we do exactly, we built an asset review management platform that allows any kind of team to review and approve any kind of file within a customizable but clearly defined workflow. And with that, we're removing the pain from everyone involved in this process of reviewing and approving. So from the project creator, from the creator over to the manager and also stakeholders. Yeah, feel free to check us out at filestage.io. Okay, our team and our meeting requirements. So like I said, we're a team of 22 people working fully remotely from all over the globe. So based on that, we have to deal with some special things. One is limited time slots. So we're working from different time zones. Everyone has kind of an individual daily schedule. So we have people that have babies. We have people that have dogs. Some people like to go to the gym in between. We have birds. We have owls. And all these kind of things bringing together is going to limit our time slots in which everyone is available and in which we can have calls and make meetings. And because we are remotely, we don't have this direct access, so we can't jump over to the workspace of the other and say, hey, let's grab a coffee and talk about this. So we don't have this ad hoc access to each other. Then we have this part of ownership. So this is, from our experience, pretty important, first of all, to run a remote team efficiently. And it's also a mindset of work. So we want to give people ownership because we think it's more valuable for people, and they're going to bring out their best. So to have ownership on each heads, we need to always share context. We need to define clear goals and commitments, and we need to have clear responsibilities. You can think about clear responsibilities as in a part of handovers and processes. Maybe a good example are bugs. A bug is coming in, it's placed on a board, and no one is scrapping this bug. So what happens? The bug is never handled. Maybe it's a critical thing, and there needs to be a clear responsibility, and that's what we have to define up front. And we have to make sure that we regularly sync to keep all the information flowing here, and that all of these parts are clear to everyone. And finally, sure, because we are remote working, we need online availability. So all the data, all the tools that we're using need to be accessible online. Based on that, we also rely on infrastructure. So we always need internet and a good connection. And we need kind of a tech affinity. Not possible for me to fly to India to tell someone how to get Hangouts running. Okay, then let's jump into the meeting structure. So this is a meeting structure that from my perspective makes sense. You can structure this kind of meetings in different ways. Here I structured it in strategy and execution at one big part, and improvement in culture. So when talking about strategy and execution, this is about planning goals, committing to goals, reporting progress. So this basically is what keeps the business running, let's say, what makes sure that everyone knows what to do, when, and why we're doing that, which is also about the context. And this kind of meetings I also pretty often name the heartbeat of our company, because this is telling in which kind of frequency we are meeting up and going to make decisions and move things forward. On the other side, we have this improvement in culture meetings. They are thought out to improve processes, improve ourselves as person, get inspired, and also socialize, even if we're just meeting virtually. This is basically what keeps the company improving, improving by allowing the people also improving inside the company, which again is improving the company. And then in the middle, we have this kind of ad hoc meetings, pretty small here. These are kind of meetings. In an idle scenario, you never have these meetings, but we're not living in an idle world. But in an idle scenario, there is no necessity to have an ad hoc meeting, because in these meetings, in the strategy meetings and in the improvement and culture meetings, you're going to clarify everything that needs to be talked about. Okay, let's dive a little bit deeper into these blocks. So we have strategic meetings. I'm not going to talk about in detail about all of them, just want to give you an overview of what's basically going on here. So in the strategic meetings, in the quarterly meetings, we're going to take a look at our yearly goals, taking a look back to the last quarter, and then taking a look into the next quarter, planning our quarterly goals. In the monthly meeting, on a monthly basis, we're going to take a look into our quarterly goals and see what kind of progress we made towards this, and if we are still on track. And yeah, that's basically about strategic things. And when it comes to execution, then we're talking about these tactical meetings. So there on a weekly basis, we're going to plan our goals. What are we going to do in the next week? What did we do last week? This is also a lot about removing impediments. So recognizing impediments pretty early, talking about them, finding solutions. So tackling problems before they're getting really big. In one-on-ones, we're going to have kind of personal work relations in which we talk about pretty personal things. And in the daily meetings, this is kind of pretty tactical, in the sense that we're just talking about, or it's more like syncing and sharing information, and getting, if I need help with coding or something like that, can we take a look together at this piece of code? Let's jump on a meeting later today, things like that. Yeah, improvement in culture. Here we have this growth meetings. Retrospectives is what we're doing. to make sure that we're learning about things that are not going that well. We have career conversations which goes into this part of personal improvement that I talked before. And then we have all these social meetings like the all hands meeting, in which we're going to group up and meet up and sharing our achievements. And we have also a pretty funny meeting. It's a donuts and coffee. This is basically people are meeting up to get to know each other personally. I brought an example for you that we will take a look into later. Okay, jumping from the meeting structure into the meeting phases. So the basic idea of these meeting phases is, in my experience, this kind of phases you will find in each kind of meeting. Doesn't matter if it's a strategy meeting, an execution meeting, tactical meeting, or if it's a cultural meeting. Maybe you can skip some parts depending on the meeting. But if you go through this list and make sure that all this is defined, from my experience, we're in a pretty good state of having a really efficient meeting. So when talking about strategy and execution, you might be pretty strict with this checklist. When talking about improvement and culture, then maybe you won't be that super strict with the agenda and things like that, because you want to leave some room for creativity and for discussions. So the meeting phases basically are planning. It's, I think, not the rocket science, but it's giving a different perspective on these phases and what a meeting in total has to cover. So planning is job of the host. So there we define a purpose. So why are we going to make this meeting? That's basically one of the most important things, I think, because based on the purpose, all the following things like the audience and also the agenda are automatically dropping out. So but the purpose is kind of the heart of the meeting. So once you've defined the audience and the agenda, you can also think about duration. So based on the agenda, you get a feeling about what's the scope and how much time will we need. And then we are going to define the time slot. By the way, there's a pretty nice feature. So we are using Google Calendar. And here's a pretty nice feature where you can just add all the participants to a meeting and then find the slot, and it's automatically searching for you a slot where everyone has free time. I also added here this part of follow-up buffer, because one of the things in online meetings is that you pretty fast, you're able to pretty fast jump into a call, jump out, jump into the next call, so which ends up in you having a day that is completely covered with meetings. But I think that after each meeting, having at least 5 minutes to clean up what happened in the meeting is a pretty good thing. Otherwise, at the end of the day, after 6 meetings or something like that, you have to clean up and prepare everything that happened there. So after planning, there's this preparation part, checking the agenda and the goals, preparing the contributions, and also making sure to share them with the team. That's also, again, this online availability and accessibility of data, which you also have seen here. And then getting familiar with other topics that are on the list. So kind of thinking them through to make discussions more efficient during the meeting, and make sure at the end that the technique is working. So I'm running on a Linux system. Pretty often had the situation that I entered the call and then recognized, okay, some of my drivers, my mic driver didn't work. Have to restart everything, restart the driver, and first of all, fix the problem. Then let's jump to the meeting phase. In the meetup, we're going to start with an icebreaker to say hello to each other. And then we're going to work through the agenda. That's basically the work of the host to guide and moderate this step. Most important things here from my learnings are timekeeping, saying that because I'm a horrible timekeeper, and you also have to care exactly this moment that I'm keep in time. So timekeeping, moderating the discussions. So if things got stuck or two people from the audience starting really hard discussions, also scratching in between and saying, hey guys, maybe afterwards you can hop on a follow-up call. and you can discuss that and make decisions there. Then also important for us is noting the decisions. So kind of adding the decisions that we're doing in a task or on the board that we're using to make sure after the meeting, everyone can remember the decisions. And also if we meet, for example, in a weekly or monthly meeting, we remember the decisions we made in 1 month. And also defining action items and assigning them also to the people. That's going into this point that I showed before, which is about ownership and context, to make sure that all the actions are really owned, because we don't have this, like I said, ad hoc access. So after the meeting, in an idle case, everyone knows exactly what he's responsible for and what are the next steps that he has to take. And then again, timekeeping, super important. Then one of my favorite in the meetup is the wrap up. So the wrap up makes sure that at the end, when we leave the meeting, everyone is on the same page. All questions are answered, are all action items in place, and all action items are owned. This makes sure everyone has clear responsibilities, and the goal that we had with the meeting really was successful, because we did everything that happened inside this meeting. These are kind of pretty generic questions. You will later see, dependent on what kind of meeting you're doing, these questions may be a little bit different or more specific. For example, in our strategic meetings, we have as a wrap-up questions, are all strategic goals are clear? And then you can also do things like, okay, pick one from the audience that is going to recall the strategy in his words, and everyone is following that and says, yes, that's exactly how I understood it as well. So we're on the same page. Okay, then we have this follow-up after the meeting. So checking the action items, enhancing the formulation, scheduling the work. So enhancing the formulation is something when doing these notes within the meetings, because it's typically super time boxed pretty often. Yeah.
Is there a place that you typically take those notes so that they are accessible to everyone on the team?
Yeah, so what we're using Asana, and we're using these Asana boards. And in the Asana boards, we have this kind of tasks. And in these tasks, there are comments. And basically in the comments, we're adding these decisions. So scrolling to the bottom, you always see the decision about this topic. And yeah, can remember that.
Nice.
Does this answer the question?
Yes, for me it does.
Cool. Perfect. Yes, then follow up, like I said, enhancing the formulation, scheduling the work, and schedule follow-up calls. In an idle situation, you don't have to schedule follow-up calls because you were able to clarify everything in that meeting. But like I said before, it's not an idle world, but idly, that's what's happening. And the host, that's also super important for us. So I don't know how many iterations it took until our quarterly meeting was really effective. So reflecting the meeting, getting your own impressions and feedback from participants, putting that into some kind of feedback, and then adapting the meeting so the next time you're going to run the meeting more efficiently. So then there are some indicators for potential to improve. So these are kind of things that, if I want to know if a meeting is really efficient or not, these are questions that I'm going to ask myself, or whenever I recognize some of these things, I'm going to rethink the whole meeting. So are participants not part of a discussion? So if someone is, over three meetings, not saying any word beside of hello and bye, then you have to ask, is it the right audience? Is the purpose matching the audience? Sometimes participants are late. So we at Filestage, we have this mindset of not blaming and judging people. Instead, we're asking, why is this happening, and finding a solution. So here I ask myself, is the time slot comfortable for all? Maybe he's bringing his children to the kindergarten, and then he's get stuck in the traffic each time, but he's not telling us about this. Is the participant not prepared? So are there some technical issues? Is access missing to some data? Is the agenda the agenda or the meeting description unclear? Repeatedly running out of timekeeping. Maybe we need to stretch the duration a little bit. Maybe the preparation tasks are not good enough. Maybe the purpose scope is too big. Maybe we should split this meeting into two smaller meetings. And finally, if I see repeatedly follow-up meetings for part of audience, that's what I already said. Is the audience the right one? Again, the purpose scope, and how was I doing the moderation job, in also again doing the timekeeping. Okay, let's glue this all together and take a look into an example. So this is our weekly meeting. So the purpose is sync on the last week progress, define the next week goals, recognize and remove impediments. So the host is the team lead, the audience is the team lead and the engineering leads. In the agenda, we're going to review the progress of the last week, defining the goals for this week, and discussing the impediments and doing a wrap up. So like you can see here, if you have a good and clearly defined purpose, basically the agenda mostly drops out automatically. Then we're defining the duration of 30 minutes, time slot, okay, on Monday, weekly repeating. Preparation, so everyone is updating the roadmap with the topics he's responsible for, updating the KPIs, checking the availability of the resources, planning the week, and adding impediments to the list that we want to discuss. And as a follow-up, we're going to remove the obstacles that we discussed, plan the development task for the next week with the team, and start working. So the resources we use here is, like already said, we have a meeting board in Asana, we have the roadmap in Asana, we have KPI boards and Google Sheets, Google Calendar for our Google events, for our meeting events, and we're using the video chat Google Hangouts. So to make it a little bit more clear, I brought kind of an screenshot of our meeting board. So what you can see here is we have an about the meeting section. We have the purpose of the meeting, so always available there for everyone that is joining this meeting. We have a resources task in which we link, the KPI board, the roadmap, and everything. Then we have these preparation tasks popping up each Monday, so that you can prepare. Inside this preparation task, we have all these things that I already explained. Then we have the standing agenda that we are following during the meeting. And then we have this wrap-up section in which we go through our wrap-up questions. And then we have this section about discussing impediments and other topics, so people can freely add questions or topics here. On the right side, we can see the calendar event invitation. Pretty good for us here. We already have the Hangouts link available. And one kind tweak, let's say, that I'm using here is about I'm linking the meeting board directly here. So if I'm adapting this agenda based on feedback or something like that, I don't have to change the agenda also in the calendar event. I simply adapt our meeting board, and that's it. So another example is the donut meeting. That's one of this kind of social meetings in which I said you don't want to be maybe that strict with the agenda and everything. So the purpose is get to know each other personally, clean up your head from work. Basically, we're randomly choosing 2 team members. The audience is just the other member. There's no agenda, only one rule: don't talk about the business. Not because people shouldn't talk about our business, because they should talk about personal things. Then duration 50 to 30 minutes. Time slot whenever something is free. For that, we're using random. Slack. They have a really good Slack bot. It's called Donut that randomly chooses the members automatically. And again, the Google Calendar and Google Hangouts. Okay. Then we put together a list of different conferencing tools. Why especially conferencing tools? Because conferencing tools is something a lot of people have really difficulties to decide which one to choose. So we at Filestage, we're using Google Hangouts. For small or written or ad hoc questions, we're also using Slack. Can also be a conferencing tool. They also have a video call functionality there. So feel free to check them out. I'm pretty sure we're sharing that afterwards now. So you have access to this conferencing tools. Here a fast checklist about what to think about when doing a conferencing, choosing a conferencing tool. So first of all, the ease of use, ease of setup. Like I said, I also have to deal sometimes with my operating system, also with browsers. Then pricing should fit into your budget. Then the features that you need, the super important feature for us, also for the meetings, is screen sharing. So the host is sharing the meeting board so that we can go through the agenda and the topics and everyone can exactly see what we're talking about, what decisions we're going to add, what kind of notes, what kind of action items. Maybe mobile support is important for you. Customer support, I think, is always important that you have access to good customer support, because if things are not running, things are always critical. And yeah, then also kind of thinking about the type of conference. So is it video, audio? Maybe Slack is enough. Depends also on the meeting. And finally, we put together some other useful tools. Like I said, Asana. I really like Asana. It's a really great project management software. Google Calendar, Filestage, sure. For example, if you have to, discuss a lot about content, and to want to review or do kind of approvals in your meeting, then definitely Filestage is a good choice. And beside of that, Zapier also helps a lot with automating and integration and moving data from one tool to the other. Cool. That's all from my side. Yeah, if you want to contact me, if you have more questions or interested in follow-up conversations, let me know. Feel free. Hope I was not that bad with the time. I think you're muted, and
you're right. I am muted. Sorry about that. So as Simon said, we are happy to answer any questions that you have. You can ask it in the chat over on the right-hand side. I also have some questions that I would like to ask as well. So Simon, I think the biggest thing for me is they say something like 91% of people daydream during meetings. How do you actually keep people engaged throughout the entire meeting?
Again?
How do you keep your teammates engaged during the meeting, especially when meetings are long? They're not just the ad hoc.
Yeah, I think basically in an idle case, meetings are not that long. So let's say 30 minutes or 60 minutes is the maximum a meeting should last, in my opinion. Because other than that, your concentration is going down. Keeping people engaged. I think the most important thing is that the audience is the right one, that the purpose of the meeting is clear, and that people that are joining the meeting really adding value, joining discussions, making decisions. If that's not the case, then definitely people will get bored or will not really take any value out of the meeting.
Okay, interesting.
So basically, it's something that happens naturally if the meeting is set up in a good way. That's the idea.
Yeah, I agree with you, and I think also keeping an open discussion, so it's not just one person talking all the time. That you can have conversations about what's going on. I think is really important with that as well.
Yeah, I totally agree. Sometimes people are not participating a discussion because context is missing, and not everyone is wants to start asking questions, because it's also taking some time from the meeting. Definitely. Yeah. So I think that's the job of the host, moderating and guiding the whole team through the agenda.
Awesome, great. And then a question I get asked all the time, especially from my friends that work in corporations, is. Mm-hmm. Do you keep your cameras on or off during these remote meetings? I know at Filestage we keep them on, but all my friends that work in corporate companies keep them off. And I think it's a really delicate balance. So I'd love to hear your opinion on that.
Yeah, I think for us, it's super important to keep video on, because it's kind of, we're not meeting physically, and seeing the picture, seeing us moving. It's kind of having like something similar, like a physical interaction. It feels more like a natural conversation. So based on that, we always try to keep video on. Sure, it's totally valid. If you have problems with the internet connections, it's totally fine to switch it off. But beside of that, we definitely keep the video running.
Wonderful. And you mentioned a couple times about icebreakers. I think that's really interesting. I love doing it because I'm part of the Filestage team. But can you talk a little bit about icebreakers and why you started implementing? Because I know that was a recent thing that you did probably about 6 months ago.
Yeah. So icebreaker, the idea of an icebreaker is to bring people into the mood or first of all breaking everything they have in their mind and kind of cleaning their head for what is happening now, for a new topic. If you're pretty limited in time, you can do super easy things, saying something like, what's your mood in one word? You can also do, if you have kind of a one-on-one in which you want to kind of also tackle maybe some more critical or some more hard topics, you can also do some more personal questions. It's also pretty nice to find out about people. Yeah, that's basically it.
You do icebreakers for every meeting or just some meetings?
Depends on the meeting. So I try to do icebreakers in each meeting in which it's possible. I think if you have a meeting, 15 minutes, then basically it's super time boxed. It's typically a meeting that you have pretty frequently. So in meetings that you have pretty frequently, I'm not using the icebreaker because you have this kind of meetup anyway. And you're typically not tackling that, these hard questions. Typically, these are just super small decisions that you're doing and small problems that you're solving in these kind of meetings.
Awesome. Okay. And then how do you get feedback on meetings? Because I know I've worked with you quite frequently, and you will come up with saying like, hey, I don't think this meeting is necessary because I talked to my team and they said this. But how do you actually get that feedback, and how do you promote that discussion so people will know whether or not meetings continue to be needed? Yeah.
So first of all, at Filestage, we have this mindset of improving personally and never stop improving, which is going to make it pretty easy for everyone to get feedback. Typically, what I do to get feedback for a meeting is that after the meeting, I'm going to pick some random participants and asking them, hey, how was your feeling? Did you feel okay? Maybe sometimes I had this improvement checklist for indicators. So if I kind of target one participant with one of these indicators, and I'm picking this one and asking him, hey, what's your feeling? Trying to not prime him because I want to get as neutral feedback as possible. But then I simply hop on a call with them or write them in Slack. So give me your impression about the feedback.
Nice. Yeah, I think that's good. So you just randomly do random polls afterwards and then kind of take the group consensus after that.
Yeah, exactly.
Perfect. I have one final question, and I'd love to see if the audience has any questions as well. But my question is about how do you make sure all people get a say? So you have one of the largest teams at Filestage, and you have meetings with up to 10 people on a video call like this. How do you make sure that everybody actually has a voice and people aren't always interrupting each other during it?
Yeah. So basically that's in the agenda. So if you have a meeting and the agenda, then basically each point is kind of a clear question or task that is going to a special person in the team, even if there are 10 people. So basically that's how automatically only people are talking and starting the discussion. Beside of that, I think it's kind of a culture that you need to have in non-e-meetings as well, that you're going to wait until people are done with their arguments, and then starting with yours. keeping everyone really super concentrated and always in a discussion, I think with an audience of 10 people is hard. But then the question is, what is the purpose of the meeting? You know, typically we don't have meetings in which we with 10 people together discuss things. I think that's too much, because at the end, even if everyone has to say something to this topic, it's super hard to get the common sense. So we have to do some preparation work and before that we're going to share the idea and people can leave their comments there and their feedback. And then we're going to kind of have representatives that are going to make the decision finally, but they are going to catch all the feedback from everyone. And then there are the meetings that you talked about in which we are 10 people are more like a reporting or more like a sync meeting in which we're going to talk about the strategy, you know, going to make sure we are on the same page. So it's more like a presentation. And then you're kind of the one that is presenting and the other ones are kind of guests, listening, answering questions, asking questions, similar like this here.
All right, awesome. So those are all of my questions that I had for you when you were giving that presentation.
Cool. Love the questions.
Any other questions? Give it a couple minutes.
Again?
I was asking the audience if anybody has questions, we can give it a couple minutes. So. Okay. So it looks pretty quiet and I don't see anybody typing. So that's really all I believe for our presentation today. I really hope that you guys found it helpful about how to structure your team meetings now that you're working from home, how to keep people engaged, and also how to actually wrap up meetings and make sure you stay on top of everything that you discussed. If you want to get in touch with Simon, he will leave his email address in this chat down on the right-hand side. Again, he's our CTO here at Filestage, and he's also our meeting guru. He really does understand the fundamentals of how to conduct a successful meeting. If you want to get in touch with me, you are also welcome to. My name is Ann Krieger, and you can get in touch with me at filestage.io, and that is my email. So please feel free to get in touch with either one of us, and we are happy to answer any of your questions and hop on calls as well to go over those. All right, so this meeting has been recorded, and it will be sent out to anyone that has signed up, and we'll put it on YouTube as well. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very much.
Have a good day.
Bye-bye.